"Get out of the way, mute freak," a voice shouted. I was walking through the school hallways, holding my physics and chemistry books between my hands. I knew that insult was directed at me. I was used to hearing it, so I turned around without giving it much thought. "Watch out, mute freak!" I heard another male voice, throwing his body against mine. He slammed me against the lockers, making me stumble and drop the books I was holding. I heard the laughter of my new classmates as they watched me crouch down to pick them up, since no one offered to help. I looked up. The culprits of that joke weren't a surprise. They were football players who had just finished training. They reeked of hormones and toxic masculinity, eager to destroy anyone they deemed fragile. That included the new girl. "You should be careful, mute freak," Adam teased. "Everyone is looking at you." Adam was right. All eyes were on me. Some might say that others felt sorry for the new girl in school, the only girl who was unable to speak due to severe psychological problems. But it was clear that no one was going to intervene to defend me, because that would lead them to be even more excluded by the jocks. I hadn't always been mute. There was a time in my life when I was happy. But that time had passed, and now all that remained instead was suffering and misery everywhere I went. Adam was the worst person ever, the most idiotic guy I had ever met in my life. He was attractive, unfortunately, which had several girls wishing they were lucky enough to talk to him. This only inflated his ego even more, which in my opinion was already about to explode. He was the definition of a school bully. If you open a dictionary and go to the word bully, his picture would appear as an example. "Come on, Adam. We're in a hurry." I heard another voice. The voice belonged to Josh, another member of the football team. I looked up again to find him patting Adam's back. Josh wasn't like him, he wasn't like the other players, he simply ignored my existence or didn't give it much thought. But he was Adam's friend, and that was why I tended to stay away. He was sweaty, his dark hair disheveled due to the intense training he had just gone through. He was still wearing his red shirt with his number and last name. When he looked past Adam's shoulder, we locked eyes for the first time, and this was when I noticed brown eyes. Josh looked away and continued his route to class. I picked up my books, reaching my locker to put them away as quickly as possible before the bell rang, letting me know it was time to start my next class, where, fortunately, Adam didn't attend, English literature. The book we were reading in English literature was Pride and Prejudice, written by Jane Austen. I had chosen the subject because of how easy it was to get a passing grade, and the fact that reading didn't involve speaking, so other teachers just left me alone during this hour and didn't try to encourage me to speak. "Class, I've decided we won't have a test on this topic," the teacher announced. There was a chorus of relieved sighs as our schedule was full of exams from different subjects, and we were only halfway through the course. I could see happiness reflected in my classmates' eyes, celebrating among themselves the fact that they would have a break during exam month. "You will, instead, do a project," she continued. Those happy looks and relieved sighs turned into complaints, with guys throwing small papers aggressively, girls crossing their arms and rolling their eyes. I, as always, lowered my head and kept my mouth shut, although I really felt the same. "And it will be with a partner," she finished explaining. If the previous sentence hadn't been enough, now this one broke us. We were all antisocial kids who barely knew each other, and everyone was secretly wishing they didn't have to do the assignment with the mute girl in class. That's why many groaned even louder. The teacher ignored this noise and displayed screen a list of names, the partner with whom we had to do the assignment. I ignored it, returning my gaze to my notebook with my various drawings, waiting for my partner to sit next to me to plan our assignment. "Josh! You got paired with the mute geek," a voice shouted from across the room. I looked up when I heard my nickname followed with Josh's name. Everyone was looking at him with a smile, almost as if they were taunting him, and he threw his head back to laugh and complain with his friends. I lowered my gaze again, sighing as I realized that Josh was like the others, equally cruel. I had some hope that maybe an attractive guy from the football team would be a nice person. I was wrong. I spent some time with my head down, as always, waiting for my partner to sit down next to me. Josh seemed like he had to gather the courage to even be seen with me. The mere idea of even interacting with the mute girl was horrifying for the jocks. He seemed bummed. I bit my pencil, sighing. "Hey, mute freak." I heard a familiar voice above me. I looked up, and there stood Josh. Of course, he used my cruel nickname. He probably didn't even know my real name, since teachers didn't usually do roll call, or they directly skipped my name since they knew I wouldn't be able to say anything. Josh sat down next to me, sighing. "Let's get this over with." "It's a project about Jane Austen, right?" he asked. I nodded. "Shit, well, I don't have time to do it, I've got training this afternoon." "You gotta do it yourself," he muttered. I rolled my eyes. Of course he pulled that card on me, his training was way more important to him. Or maybe he was just using that excuse to not work, therefore not work with the mute freak. He seemed to notice my sad expression. Then he looked around, almost as if he were checking that no one was looking at him. He then opened his mouth to speak. "Look, maybe I can come over to your house after training to help you," he whispered, almost with an empathetic tone. "But no one can know, got it?" I wasn't expecting him to try to help me, much less offered to come over to my house. My face almost flushed red, but I managed to compose myself. He then turned around, smiling to himself as he muttered, "Not that you can say much, anyways."